Yeah. What are you saying, Dad? Wouldn't have gone past 2, would it?
Right.
Yeah. What are you saying, Dad? Wouldn't have gone past 2, would it?
Is that the same Nigel Benn who turned up on my TV screen back in October time and said, "Oh, this news about my son and VADA testing has been a shock to the system." And then it came out that actually there was another adverse finding about 2 months ago. Is that the same Nigel? Can someone let me know in the chat? Is that the same Nigel who turned up and said, when I first heard the news about my son, I was shocked. And then it came out about, it came out that his son had also had another adverse finding about 2 fucking months earlier that he forgot to mention. Fucking hell. They're coming out, innit? They're all out, aren't they? They're all out, yeah. Yeah, Damien. That's a good one, actually. Let me get onto that. And I love Nigel. So I'm just getting a box of strepsils here. I love Nigel to bits, but not very Christian of you, is it, Nigel? Not very Christian of you, is it, Nigel? With what of you being a pastor and all that. And I love Nigel Benn to bits, but Nigel's supposed to be a fucking pastor out there. Well, Nigel, not being funny, mate. He who cast the first stone and all that. I mean, your son's just had 2 adverse findings with VADA. Next minute he's going on Instagram laughing. It is what it is, isn't it, Nige? It is what it is. Anyway. Well, Dench says, yeah, happy to miss a payday. The joke's on them. Look, this show's for you guys. Because when we did the post-fight last night, the post-fight was at like 2 in the morning, wasn't it? It finished at like 2 in the morning, so not everybody had a chance to have their say. So, if you just give me 1 second here, I'm giving you guys the chance to have your say right now. If anybody wants to call in and give their views on Eubank getting sparked out last night and where Eubank goes from now, I've put a link in the description box if anybody would like to call in. It's up to you if you'd like to call in and give your opinion, but not everybody had a chance to have their say yesterday, so I've just pinned that to the top of the chat. Damien says your reaction last night was gold. Thank you, I really appreciate that. I did get some positive feedback. I mean, we did okay numbers last night, actually. We did like, at one point we had close to 320. So we did quite decent numbers. Big thanks to Shevin, who came on to do the post-fight. Big thanks to Ingram, and thanks to my man, Tony's Reviews. I'll be plugging Tony's Reviews channel in a minute. Tony's an absolute animal. See the size of this guy? This guy's an absolute animal, mate. Spends all day in the gym. So, not only is this Muppet, these two, the Chuckle Brothers as I now call them, no, Conor and Nigel, the Chuckle Brothers, right? The Chuckle Brothers are now laughing at Chris Eubank, but look at this prick. I mean, you can't write this shit, can you? This absolute arse clown here is now turning up, yeah? One Mr. Billy Joe Saunders is now, all of a sudden, yeah? Come out of hiding, isn't he? Billy Joe, he's now talking, isn't he? Now, Billy Joe won't come on camera. Have you noticed that? Billy Joe's doing a phone call interview with IFL TV. Won't show his face on camera. Could be the reason why is because last time we saw Billy Joe Saunders, he looked like he weighed about 350 pounds. Last time we heard about Billy Joe Saunders, he weighed so much, right, that there was rumours that Greg Marriott, who's the strength nutritionist for the Ingle Gym, and in my opinion, the best in the business, right? Greg Marriott, the best in the business when it comes to getting fighters down to the bare bones weight, but also get some performance out of them, yeah? Billy Joe Saunders is so overweight. Greg Marriott is thinking about moving back in with Billy Joe to get him into his shape for this so-called comeback, yeah? But that's a Billy show. Billy Joe won't even show his face on the camera. Here we go. That's the picture I wanted. Last time we saw Billy Joe, he out here looking like this. On the right-hand side. That's the last time we saw Billy Joe. He out there looking like that on the right-hand side. So that's why he don't even want to get on the camera and show his face, yeah? To laugh at Chris Eubank Jr. and say that he should retire. Because, it is what it is. He also took the time, if anybody cares, to announce his comeback. So if anybody's still interested in Billy Joe Saunders, yeah? He's announced his comeback. He's coming back to boxing, he says. He says his legal team at the minute or what I mean, his legal team are in discussions and they're just dealing with XYZ, and he's trying to get his comeback on the way. But obviously, we can't see what kind of shape he's in. What do you think about that? You want about mates, right? You know, he said, to be fair, Eubank did a video laughing at Saunders after the Canelo fight. Hey, look who's here. Joe, listen, I know you've got bigger and better things to do, Joe. I know that, and you know, whatever. But I'm just saying, if you ever want to pop on here, Joe, you're always welcome. Last night we had 300 people in here, but you were busy. You were busy doing the big boy leagues at Sky. But big shout out to Joe Gallagher. And if you ever want to pop on for 2 seconds and give us your insight, by all means, brother, it's a big platform. Send me a DM, I'll send you the link. You can pop on, but if not, just have a listen. So yeah, we've got the big boys in tonight. Billy Joe, I'm not happy with Billy Joe. But that's a very, very good point that was made by you on about, mate. When Billy Joe Saunders had his orbital bone broken by Canelo Alvarez, Chris Eubank Jr. did release a video laughing at him, and I thought that was absolutely disgusting. To be honest, I thought that was absolutely outrageous. So, then again, yeah, you on about, mate, it's just KO'd me in one go. But what do you guys think? Billy Joe Saunders is saying that Chris Eubank should retire. That's what they're saying. They're saying Chris Eubank Jr. should retire from boxing. I was hoping to get a few callers in, but if not, I'll read your comments. We didn't get all your views last night because we finished quite late. How would you guys move Chris Eubank Jr. going forward? And what do you think about Billy Joe Saunders' comments? Billy Joe Saunders' comments were basically the following. In this IFL TV interview, he basically says, right, that Eubank Jr. overachieved. That's what he said. He said he made a name off his father and basically overachieved for his career. He said he earned more money from the sport than he should have earned. He overachieved from his career. He was never a very good technical boxer. I will say one thing that I have to agree with Billy Joe Saunders on. And this was always a big red flag to me. Billy Joe Saunders said he's going to Roy Jones and he's got Roy Jones as a coach. And Roy Jones is trying to teach this guy how to box at age 33. And when you put it like that, that's kind of a massive red flag. Press 1 if you agree with Billy Joe on that, and press 2 if you disagree. I'm sorry, that is a big, big red flag. As I've been saying for a long time about Chris Eubank Jr., lacks the fundamentals of boxing. And we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in a minute. Lacks his fundamentals in boxing. And then all of a sudden, you're going back to Roy Jones Jr. at the age of 33 years old to go back and teach you some of the fundamentals that you should have learned when you came through. Obviously, Eubank didn't have much of an amateur career of any at all, etc., etc. You know, I have to say, I do think Billy Joe, Chippy agrees with that. I do think Billy Joe was bang on about that. And I think that was a big red flag that quite a few Eubank fans missed out on last night. I think we did a poll last night. And was it 70% of people picking Eubank? I thought Eubank was going to win on points, but possibly controversial decision. But I always thought Smith had a good chance in that fight. But the way people were talking last night is if Eubank was going to blow Smith away. But Liam Smith is he's not a flashy fighter, but he's very, very solid at the fundamentals. We'll talk about that. Very, very economical, not a lot of wasted movement. Let me just go through some comments in a minute. Toby Players says, if I was Team Eubank, I'm either going to try and go for the rematch or get BJS back in the ring. Well, that's interesting. So in this interview with IFL TV as well, Billy Joe says he does not want to fight Chris Eubank Jr. again. He says he wants to come back. He only wants to come back and fight at what he calls elite level. So he's saying he wants like the likes of an Andrade. He said he'd be open to a rematch with John Ryder for obvious reasons, etc., etc. But he said he's not interested in a fight with Eubank unless it's silly money. So let me know how you feel about that. To be honest, I still think, you know, it's a very, very good fight because if you're asking me, they're both finished. You know, to be honest, I think they're both on the slide. I think, you know, Billy Joe Saunders is talking about the effects of Chris Eubank Jr., you know, ballooning up in weight and then killing himself to get down to weight. Well, Billy Joe Saunders is one of the worst boxers in the UK for ballooning up in weight and then getting down to weight. Am I right or am I wrong? Press 1 if I'm right on that, or press 1 if I disagree with that. But if you disagree with that, for me, I mean, Billy Joe Saunders turning around and talking about, you know, the downfalls of what happens in boxing when you balloon up to a high weight and then have to cut down weight. To me, that is the pot calling it the kettle black at its absolute finest. Let me make sure I get through some of these comments because these are about you. But let me ask you one more question before I go through your comments. And I want to ask you, last night, about 15 minutes before the main event started, I ran through my issues with Chris Eubank Jr., yeah? looking back on the career of Chris Eubank Jr., I want to ask you guys in the chat. I'm going to go through your comments. Do you think that he's overachieved in his career for a guy who's never really shown, the ability to do some of the basics in boxing? For me, a jab for me. Very, very. His jab last night was actually, ironically, the best I've seen it in a very long time. But he's a fighter who neglected the jab for so long. We've all seen those snippets of Chris Eubank Jr. slipping over and falling off balance in the ring. We've all seen those things, right? We've all seen those segments in the ring where Chris Eubank goes for a big shot, a big overhand shot. He goes for a big lead shot and he falls over himself and he trips over himself. The reason why Chris Eubank Jr. does a lot of that is because he's never big on setting up shots behind the jab. So he was always too far out and didn't quite know where he was in the ring. And was constantly falling over himself, tripping over himself. If you watch the Billy Joe Saunders fight, he spends the first 6 rounds tripping over himself, falling over himself and all sorts in that fight. Because he doesn't set up shots behind the jab, so he's not quite sure about where he is in the ring versus where his opponent is. And he just missed that schooling. Another point I'll say quickly, before, if you missed it last night, his footwork is dreadful. And like I said, I'm glad Toby Players is here because Toby Players and Chris Eubank Jr. literally have the same footwork. Every time the opponent steps in and tries to take the centre of the ring, they leap out of the range with their 2 feet off the floor. They literally leap out of range. And like I said before, this is one of the things that you learn in the gym, yeah? ABC 1, 2, 3, yeah? In your first couple of weeks, when you're doing your footwork drills, You're doing your footwork drills and you're doing your in, out, side to side, you're in, out, side to side, and you've got the strips of paper on the floor, yeah? And you've got your angles on the floor, and you're in, out, you're bouncing, in, out, in, out. You don't want to ever be in a situation where you're leaping out of range and both your feet are coming off the floor. Because one, it's terrible for conserving energy. You're going to gas yourself extremely quickly if you're leaping in and out of range. You're also going to be taking yourself off balance as well because obviously, you aren't in a position to counterpunch because like I said before, you're leaping backwards, you're leaping forwards, your feet aren't having that connection with the floor. So you can't lean on that foot. You can't lean on that back foot and turn over a right hand or get anything set or get set to counterpunch, right? A lot of being... And Eubank, that's ironic because Eubank was trying to play the counterpuncher against Smith last night, right? Wasn't he? He was trying to play the counterpuncher, trying to get on the back foot behind his jab and walk Smith onto something. But a lot of being a good counterpuncher is about 2 things: timing and balance, right? If you want to be a good counterpuncher, timing and balance are very, very important. And if you're hopping in and out of range and your feet are leaving the floor when you're hopping back, you're literally jumping back into the corner and your feet are leaving the floor, then you're not in a position to counterpunch. Your timing's fucked up and you're all over the place. These are the kind of things that if you had any kind of sort of decent schooling, right, before you jumped into the deep end, you'd like to sort of iron those things out. And Chris Eubank Jr. never, ever ironed those things out. I'm going to go through all of your comments now. So what do you guys think? Do you guys think that Chris Eubank's confidence has fucked with you a bit? Do you think that if you look at his record, right? If you look at all of his major fights, Korobov, I believe he probably was the favourite to win that fight. He was the betting favourite against Billy Joe Saunders. Was he the favourite to beat George Groves? He's been the favourite, right, in pretty much all of the close to 50-50 fights he's had. And let me ask you a question. How many of these 50-50 fights has Chris Eubank Jr. actually won? Can somebody tell me? When was the last time we saw Chris Eubank Jr. in a genuine 50-50, I'm not sure he's going to win, I'm not sure if he can win that fight, and he come through that fight? Can somebody tell me and let me know? Let me know in the comments. Let's go through the comments. Boxing Classics HQ. I thought Eubank was piecing Smith. I did. I thought he was turning the fight around in the third. After that third round, I thought, well, Eubank is going to go on and win that because I thought, well, he's genuinely hurt Smith. But the fight turned on its head. Brian Burke says, hate when fighters try to claim a win based off other people's losses. Dillian used to do it a lot. Yeah, we hate that. We call it winning by proxy, don't we? Where a fighter claims a win by proxy, doesn't he? He claims a win by proxy. He didn't go in and do the job himself, but he's cheering for somebody else doing the job. Let's have a look here. Money Tree says, totally agree with your take on having some compassion for Eubank, who has been through a tough time recently with the death of his brother and the strained relationship with his father. So for those of you who follow me on Twitter, I did release a comment quite recently to say, look, I think Chris Eubank Jr. does need help. I mean, obviously he needs help with his boxing first, but like I said before, I think mentally, obviously, like I said before, he's been through a hell of a lot in the last year or two. People forget, obviously, his brother went for a swim in the middle of Dubai one night and never came back. You know, what a way to lose someone you care about. I mean, just, you know, a horrendous way to lose somebody you care about. Imagine if a family member of yours said to you, oh, yeah, I'm just popping out for a swim. Going out for a swim like they normally do, and they don't return home. The next day you come back, you know, it was a horrendous situation that happened. And then he had to go through the trauma of what happened with the Conor Benn. Let me tell you how bad Chris Eubank Jr. had it. Press 1 if you agree with this, right? And press 2 if you disagree. Let me tell you how bad this man has it at home. This is Chris Eubank Jr.'s brother-in-law, right? Frank Smith. Can you imagine, yeah? If your own brother-in-law, the guy that was laying up in bed with your sister every night, knew that your opponent had 2 adverse findings with VADA. Two adverse findings with his father. And he somehow forgot to tell his own brother-in-law, who sleeps in the same bed as his fucking sister. If I was Chris Eubank Jr. and I had guys like this in my family, like Frank Smith, Jesus Christ. I mean, talk about fucking snakes in the grass. Press 1 if you agree with that. Press 2 if you disagree. Sean, Eubank says he wasn't aware of the first one. The second one he says he was, but from what I've heard, I don't think he ever knew about the first adverse finding. I think Eubank is on record as saying if he'd have known about the first finding, then he may not have done it as well. But this guy, he's supposed to be his family. This man is supposed to be his family. Unless he didn't know. Unless somehow Frank Smith didn't know. But can you believe that stuff? If you're sitting at home in this family and this guy is marrying your sister and he's promoting your opponent and your opponent has had 2 fucking tests. 2 adverse findings in 2 tests. You're sitting there thinking, what the and they're still trying to put the fight on. And they're still trying to get you to boil down to 157 pounds. Have you seen the photos of Chris Eubank? When he was drained out of his mind, trying to make weight. Have you seen the state of this man? His brother-in-law sat and watched him boil down to 157 pounds. His own brother-in-law sat and watched him boil down to 157 pounds against the guy who had 2 adverse fucking findings. How do people do this shit? Jesus Christ. I mean, he has had, yeah, a fucking terrible year, isn't he? He has had a really, really bad year. Brother goes out for a swim, tragically passes away, doesn't come back. Next minute, you got guys like this in your own family. Fucking hell. Then he's had the problems with his own father. I mean, Jesus Christ. He has had some run. And so look, Southside Boxing, if you'd like to call in, you're welcome to, sir. If you look at the top of your YouTube chat, if you just click on the link, you can join. So if anybody wants to chat and just give their opinion, I'm not going to talk. You can just give your opinion on where you thought the fight was won, where you thought the fight was lost, and where you think Eubank goes from now. You're welcome to have your say. If you just look at the top of the chat, it's pinned. Tap in and have your say. Yeah, it's just been a hell of a year. It's been an absolute hell of a year. You know, it's been a hell of a year. And, you know, look at Frank, the constant defending of this guy. You know, Frank Smith still on camera defending this guy. Jesus Christ. I mean, I'll be honest with you. How would you guys feel if he was my brother-in-law? I know he's got a job to do, but if he's my brother-in-law, right, and I'm boiling down to 157 pounds against a guy who has had 2 adverse findings in 2 months, I may not have known about the first adverse finding. Next minute, I go on fucking ID Boxing. I see this guy on camera capping for my opponent. I'll be sitting there thinking, fuck, what about me? I'm right, ain't I supposed to be family? Ain't blood supposed to be thicker than water? Ain't I supposed to be family? Like, how about, look, do you know what I mean? How about at the minimum you just shut the fuck up and stay out of it? But this dude's on camera talking about the resumption of Conor Benn's career. And you guys wondering why Eubank Jr. is at home stressed out. That's enough to stress anybody out. Jesus Christ. For me, that is enough to stress anybody out. How do you guys feel about that? Let me go through some of your comments on that. Sorry about that. G Poker says, I said KG first 3 and Eubank taking over. Couldn't have called it more wrong, and nobody called that fight correctly. The KG says, Eubank can still make big money against the likes of Kell Brook, BJS, Jake Paul, and Triple G. Triple G, you make it the favourite to knock him out, 100%. Because Triple G was still giving Canelo something to think about in the later rounds of their fight. What do you guys think? In Canelo Triple G 3, did you not think late on Canelo started to feel a few of them shots from Triple G? I mean, he won the fight clearly, but late on for me, Triple G showed that his power is still there. Do you guys think that there's any sort of signs that Triple G's lost his power? He's lost a lot of things, obviously, but for me, the power's still there. And Triple G has one of the best jabs in boxing versus Chris Eubank Jr., who has, in my opinion, one of the worst jabs in boxing. Jake Paul's too big, in my opinion. Saunders doesn't want to fight him. And we'll see. Kell Brook's not going to want to fight him coming off a loss. I think Kell Brook's saying he wants to fight Conor Benn. That's the latest news coming out of that side. That Kell Brook watched the fight and he's not interested in fighting Liam Smith. He wants to fight. Conor Benn. Chris S says his confidence won't dent. He knows he's not at world level. He's just trying to earn as much as possible. Dench says I'd be taking Frank Smith's door off. Joe Mack says too much messing around with weight can reduce punch resistance. Maybe that punch knocks anybody out. We don't know. Yeah, we don't know. We don't know. Big up Joe Gallagher listening in. Big up Joe Gallagher and Gallagher's Gym. Listen, you guys will hear me have to apologise to Joe Gallagher, because when Joe Gallagher won Ring Magazine Trainer of the Year, I was the first one coming out here to dispute it. And all of a sudden, when he starts messaging me, I'm licking Joe Gallagher's ass. So I am an absolute hypocrite, yeah, of the highest calibre, and everybody should give me a thumbs down. Let's have a look at TMT. Eubank had nothing to do near a boxing ring. So TMT doesn't think Eubank... Can I ask you guys a question? Do you think what TMT's saying is correct? Do you think Eubank maybe took this fight a little bit too soon after the Conor Benn fight? Looking back on it, right, we've talked about the weight drain and things like that. And we'll talk about Liam Smith in a minute, because let me make it 100% clear. Liam Smith's a better boxer than Chris Eubank. Make that fucking... That's not even up for discussion, right? Liam Smith is a better boxer than Chris Eubank. And we'll be talking about that in a minute, yeah? And we'll talk about that in a minute in just a sec. But I just want to ask you, TMT's raised an interesting point. Eubank shouldn't have been anywhere near a boxing ring. Probably in the same mental state that Joshua and Fury was back in the days, etc., etc. What do you think? Do you think that Eubank's been advised badly? What do you think about that? It's quite a quick turnaround, wasn't it, for Eubank, right? He was killing himself to make 157 pounds. He was on weight. We know on the day of the fight, he weighed 159 pounds because he showed a video of himself. So we know that Eubank on the day of the fight, even though the fight didn't take place, we know that Chris Eubank was 159 on the day of the fight. The man killed himself to prove to everybody that he was going to make that rehydration weight clause, right? Which is stupid, but he did that, right? So we know that. And then all of a sudden, that Liam Smith fight seemed to come around rather quickly, didn't it? What do you guys think about that? I think TMT's raised a very good point there. Do you think Eubank's been a bit badly advised there? Do you think somebody around there who knew a little bit more about boxing? Do you think somebody around there who maybe knew a little bit more about nutrition could have said, well, Chris, actually, mate, you've just fucking killed yourself to make 157 for a fight that hasn't happened. Maybe give yourself, maybe go out, enjoy your Christmas, don't train, stay out of the gym, build up again and come back. Maybe, what do you think? Bit soon? I have to be honest with you, and maybe I'm just throwing blame out for the sake of blame. That fucking Calasaurland seemed like he wanted Eubank in the ring ASAP, but maybe I've got that wrong. Let's have a look. Southside Boxing says, why would you take the fight with Smith after a long camp? Boiling down to fight Ben. The thing with his brother, etc., etc., he needed a rest. D. Thomas says, Frank Smith looks a mug. Anyway, Eubank's sister... I can't read that out these days. We're a PG channel. A says, yeah, I think he's overachieved skills-wise, but he knew how to cash in and build a public persona. Let me ask you guys a question on this. Chris Eubank Jr., yeah? I'm just trying to think. What are his attributes? Tell me, what do you think his best attribute is, other than his chin? Is that what we're saying his best attribute was tonight? His chin. You can only dine out for so long in boxing with your chin, can't you? You can only dine out on having an iron chin for so long in boxing, right? And we said yesterday, right, with Chris Eubank Jr., did you see him in the corner squirming around off balance when Liam Smith... By the way, the uppercut that Liam Smith hit him with was absolutely... I don't know if you saw the uppercut that Smith, his eyes rolled in the back of his head. I'm surprised he was even on his feet to take the hook. But you talk about the difference between these fighters. We see Liam Smith hurt against Canelo Alvarez. I've said it before. I hope Joe Gallagher hears this because I've always said this about Liam Smith. If you look at all of the fighters that fought Canelo Alvarez, I thought Liam Smith has put the best effort in out of all these British fighters who Canelo Alvarez beat. I always thought Beefy put in the best performance because he came to win and he left nothing on the table. He wasn't going to settle for a point decision. When you watch Beefy in that fight, like, he came to get the W, right? I thought he performed with credit. But if you look at the experience that Liam Smith has from the Canelo fights and these fights, he hit the canvas against Canelo, but he knew how to get up, didn't he? He hit the canvas, he got up, obviously got put down again, but he had that experience. He knew how to survive. He's got an exceptional guard. I have to say, I'm not the biggest fan of Liam Smith as a boxer because he's not that flashy. But if you want to look up economical fighters who do more with less, like I said before, doesn't waste movement. He wanted to get past the long jab of Eubank last night. You see Liam Smith, he wants to get past that long jab of Chris Eubank. He's not fucking ducking, weaving, bobbing and weaving, doing any sort of unnecessary movement. He's walking himself into the pocket. He's keeping upright. He's not wasting any energy. He's throwing feints at Eubank, trying to draw the lead and then trying to work off the lead. And he does things very, very, very economical. I will say there's actually a lot that we can learn from fighters like Liam Smith because they're not necessarily flashy, right? But it's the way that his defense. Round 3 was a bad round, right? But other than that, Liam Smith, I watched him over his career since Box Nation days. Compact defense. Holds the earmuffs high, nice high guard, but tucks those elbows in, covers the hooks well, covers the body shots well. Nice compact guard. Liam Smith don't waste nothing. Doesn't waste nothing. Walked himself into the pocket, decent enough foot speed, feinted against Eubank, drew the lead, boxed him in, ring generalship. I just thought, like I said before, you saw the difference last night between a seasoned boxer who's been in the trenches, a seasoned boxer who's been in the trenches and done it properly, yeah? And unfortunately in Eubank, somebody who, with no disrespect to Chris, but let's be honest, do you think this is fair? A bit of a hype job. Press 1 if you think that's a fair comment, or press 2 if you think that's unfair. If you look over Eubank's career, hand on heart, he's been a hype job, hasn't he? Am I right or am I wrong? It's a bit harsh, right? And I didn't want to see him get knocked out the way he did last night. But if you look at Eubank's career on balance, would you say that, look, that's the bottom line of it, yeah? The guy was a hype job, right? Who, had some highlight reel knockouts, yeah? Against cab drivers and journeymen on Mick Hennessy cards in fucking Blue Water Shopping Centre, right? Every time he's pretty much stepped up, particularly against fighters who've got a decent jab, he has suffered. Marcus Morrison gave this guy serious problems in their fight. But, like I said before, the whole thing about, well, he's the son of Eubank, he's inherited Eubank's chin, all this kind of stuff. Maybe people just got taken in. And obviously his personality draws people in. But what do you guys think? I actually think, look, he's overachieved. And Billy Joe Saunders said he'll never be world champion. Well, there's no shame in that, is there? But and let me just ask you one more thing as well before I go through the rest of your comments. Let me ask you one thing. The whole thing about Eubank boiling himself down. Boxing Classics hit it nail on the head. The whole thing about Eubank boiling down to 160. Well, is the truth of the matter, is the truth that Chris Eubank Jr. had to boil down to 160 because the only way he could compete at the highest level, really, was to have some kind of size advantage over his opponent. Because really, skill for skill, he's not good enough to really be matched with a world-class opponent at that kind of level. So he has to have some kind of physical advantage in all of his fights. And that's the reason he had to boil himself down to 160. Do you think that's... Let me know. Do you think I'm being unfair with those comments? Or not? Do you think that's the real reason why he has to kill himself to make 160 pounds? Because realistically, do you know what I mean? Once he goes up the weight classes, his technique and his ability alone is going to get him killed. He doesn't have the ability, really. I mean, we saw the fight with George Groves. He lost that fight handily, but he took some big shots and he took them well. He lost that fight handily, though. He was never really in the fight with George Groves. He was never in the fight with George Groves. George Groves won that fight 160, 112, 8-4 all day long. So what do you think? Do you think that's the real reason why Chris Eubank Jr. boils down to 160 so much? Because he looks in the mirror and his handlers look in the mirror and it's like, well, let's just be honest, like, does this guy have the ability, when he doesn't have that big weight advantage, when he doesn't have his physical advantages, are his boxing skills good enough to take over? And the answer is, no, they're not, are they? They're not, they're not. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. So maybe some of the blame for boiling down actually maybe comes down to Chris Eubank Jr. Go through your comments, and then I want to go back to his training situation. Before I go through your comments, can somebody tell me how many years did he have a real trainer? When he was on Box Nation, was it his father and Ronnie Davis training him? Can someone press 1 and let me know? Who's been training this guy? Am I right in thinking that he's had a whole myriad of trainers over the years? I'm trying to think. When he was boxing our mate Mark Tibbs, and when Jimmy Tibbs was training Billy Joe Saunders, who was training Eubank then? Was it his father and Ronnie Davis? I mean, the guy's 33 years old and he's making moves at 33. He's bringing in trainers to try and teach him the basics at 33 years old. Oh, I'm not sure. Let me go through some more comments. I'm thinking about this. Guys, if you want to hit the like button, please do. We've got about 123 in the chat so far. Not too bad. We know there's some other shows that are running at the same time as us right now. So hopefully the numbers will pick up in a bit. Last night we did over 300. We did quite well. 123 in the chat. If you'd like to be part of the chat, please feel free to subscribe. If you'd like to hit the like button, please feel free to hit the like button. This show's about you. If you want to call in and give your comments on what you saw from Eubank. And let me tell you something, and give some credit to Liam Smith. I mean, we talk about the rematch. For me, the rematch is even worth talking about. Liam Smith is a better boxer than Chris Eubank Jr. As simple as that. The only thing that Chris Eubank Jr. has over Liam Smith is size. That's literally it. But then you look at really every asset of fundamental other than that. I mean, I would argue Liam Smith's got the better footwork than Chris Eubank Jr. by a mile. Again, is he flashy? Is his feet flashy? No, his feet are not flashy. But again, like I said before, in them first 1 to 2 rounds, I thought Liam Smith footwork tremendous. Did a very good job cutting off the ring and then controlling the spacing in them first 2 rounds. Just sitting in the pocket, pressuring Chris Eubank Jr., boxing him in the corner, not overcommitting and throwing feints at him, and trying to lead off the jab and work off him. Again, he's not flashy, but he knows how to do things that Eubank doesn't do. You don't see Liam Smith bouncing in and out of range with his feet leaving the floor. Ryan Clark says, can you call in? You can call in. You're welcome to. But the link is at the top of the chat. Look, I'll post it in the chat one more time. The link is in the top of the chat. It's pinned to the YouTube comments right at the top. So all you have to do is click on that link and you can be here. But I'm posting it in the chat for you to see here. Right. Donny Ratta. Roy Jones Jr.'s style doesn't suit him. He felt he had to change because of 2 losses. He didn't. He only lost to BJS because he gave away first 6 rounds and Groves just too big. If he'd have kept his own style, different story. I would slightly disagree with you, Donny, on one thing. He only lost to BJS because he gave away the first 6 rounds. Bro, he gave away the first 6 rounds for a reason. Because he wasn't in Saunders' league. When Saunders was on his bike and had fitness and was on the jab, Chris Eubank couldn't get anywhere near Billy Joe Saunders. And if you just go back and watch that fight, in the first 6 rounds is Eubank just swinging and missing because he has no setups behind the jab. No setups behind the jab. And he's swinging and missing wildly. Now, what brought him into the fight, in the second half of the fight was work rate. For me. Press 1 if you disagree with that. Press 2. For me, the only thing that brought him into that fight with Saunders was Saunders' work rate dropping. And we know Billy Joe Saunders does not live the life outside the ring. So I disagree with that. I think the only reason he came close to Billy Joe Saunders is because Billy Joe's fitness caught up with him in the second half of the fight. If that was the Billy Joe Saunders who fought David Lemieux, can you imagine that? You see that, which was the best Billy Joe Saunders I've ever seen, yeah? If you took a look at Billy Joe Saunders, you did the 12 against Lemieux, and you'd have put that version in with Eubank, Do you know how bad that would have looked? That would have looked terrible. Dopamine says Eubank was breathing from his mouth and he was getting. We were saying all this in the chat. Breathing out of his mouth, sitting on a stool in the first round. And he looked gaunt coming out to the ring. He didn't look right coming out to the ring. He looked gaunt. Looked gaunt coming out to the ring. Gaunt coming out to the ring. Boxing Classic says the signs were there when Ty nearly scored him. I don't watch Ty and Booth's channel, but I know Ty and Booth did very, very well against Eubank. But Ty and Booth is actually, I don't agree with the things he says, and I don't watch his channel. But by all accounts, Ty and Booth was a very talented boxer who could have done a lot more in his career than what he achieved. So I'm just trying to look for some more comments. TMT says Eubank has nothing over Smith technically, who's a good fighter in his own right. Sean at Medieval says when you're weaker physically, you have to make yourself into a better boxer. You know, I'm not into all this pound for pound list bullshit, right? But isn't that why we give so much credence to fighters who move up weight? You know, fighters who move up from being physically advantaged to physically disadvantaged and still find a way to be world champion. That is the kind of a sign of a fighter that's got genuine, you know, not all the time, but that is one of the key signs that a boxer has, you know, an incredible amount of skill, isn't it? When they can jump up a weight class or two, yeah? And, you know, obviously they lose out in physicality, but because they're so skilled or because they're so talented, that can override, yeah, the losses that they have in weight, you know, or the losses that they have in physicality. And Chris Eubank Jr. never had any of that. Ryan, you're welcome. Anybody's welcome to jump on if they just click the link. Let me just see. This is an interesting comment. Connor says his strength has been his athleticism, which will only get worse as he ages. No fundamentals to fall back on. Let me just say, we had Tony on last night from Tony's Reviews. Tony had 32 fights in the amateurs, and I think Tony works with fighters to this day, yeah? He's definitely in the gym. Tony's definitely in the gym. And I didn't get the answer, but it seemed like Tony had some form of experience with Roy Jones. Like, the way Tony was talking on last night's show, it looked like he'd either been around Roy Jones in the ring or he knew fighters who worked with Roy Jones, because what he was saying about the way Roy Jones Jr. trains was like a method of fact. Ryan, I'm going to bring you on in just a sec, yeah, Ryan? So I can see you in the lobby. I'll bring you in just a sec. And he said, right, Tony said that Roy Jones never the right coach for Chris Eubank Jr. because he says Roy Jones tries to teach fighters to box like himself too much. And Roy forgets that Roy boxed the way he boxed because he was, no problem, Ryan, no problem, because he was incredibly physically gifted. And Tony said, you know, Roy Jones, and it's so true, you know, Roy Jones, again, pound for pound, one of the greatest fighters in history, right? But again, Roy Jones, if you look at the stuff that he did in the ring, it was all wrong. And I'm glad Tony said that because, you know, people do forget about Roy Jones. The stuff that he was doing in the ring was technically unacceptable. Do you know what I mean? Like, the stuff he was doing was technically unacceptable. But look, he got away with it because of his reflexes. He got away from... Shane Mosley was another one. He got away with it because of his reflexes. His reflexes left him and he had nothing. And, you know, let me just quickly say this. You know, you saw Eubank in a corner getting finished by Liam Smith. You know, again, he was hit with a tremendous uppercut. And I can't show the replay because I'll get done for copyright. But if you watch that little snippet of Eubank in the corner getting finished off by Liam Smith, did you see that? He lacked a bit of craft. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Did you see Eubank, the way he was bopping and weaving and popping upside down? The way he was popping and weaving and moving his head around, and it looked weird. Does that make sense? That he wasn't composed at all. He looked like a fish out of water. When Eubank was in that corner and he was getting caught with shots, you know, he didn't know how to clinch, didn't know how to hold, didn't know how to get out. He did not know how to survive, did he? What do you guys think? Press 1 if you agree, press 2 if you disagree. I'll have to have a look at it on camera again. But when Liam Smith had him trapped in the ropes, you know, didn't have the whereabouts to get inside. Can I grab a clinch on him? Can I get inside? Can I grab a clinch? You know? And the way he was bobbing and weaving and his head was moving around, it looked awkward. Exactly you on about, mate. It looked very, very awkward the way he was in the corner. He looked wrong in that corner. He looked like a guy who, when he got hit and when he got hurt, and that's what I'm saying, like, do you know how to survive in the ring? He didn't know, did he? He didn't know. He didn't know. He didn't know. You know? Ryan, are you ready? Let me know, Ryan, if you're ready. Let me know. Send me a message, Ryan. If you're ready, I'll bring you on. We've got Ryan who's going to come on and have a chat with us. What was I going to say? Someone made an interesting comment as well about Ultra. Here we go. Raymond Hales, Ultra. Why dislike Eubank so much? Listen, bro, we're not disliking Chris Eubank Jr. It's about a reality check, innit? Do you know what I mean? It's about a reality check. We ran a poll last night. 70% of people thought Eubank was going to win this fight handily. He didn't do it. You know, we have to have a reality check, don't we? And say, let's be honest. You know, have we been at the crack pipe when we've been discussing how good Chris Eubank Jr. is? And we have to be honest about that. And just say, look, you know, it is what it is. Right, Ryan's ready. I'm going to bring Ryan in. Oh, let me get my headphones on. One sec. We'll let our first caller in. I'm not going to debate with anybody. I'm just going to let you say your pick. Well, you know, I might have a chat, but let me just put my headphones on and then we will get ready. Yeah, I have to be honest. And, you know, I picked Eubank to win on points, but just have to be honest about where he is in his career. You know, I've always doubted Chris Eubank Jr. because he doesn't have any very good boxing fundamentals. Right, let me just make sure I got my mic and my headphones set up. Sorry about this. I've been caught cold here. I'm like Chris Eubank Jr. in round 4. I've been caught cold and I don't know how to survive. And these headphones are absolute complete garbage. So we're going to switch to our Sony ones, which actually may fucking work. While he's waiting, let me read these comments. Michael J says, Eubank has been hurt like that before, but made it to the 12th round. What fight was he hurt like that before? I've never seen him hurt like that before. I've never seen Eubank borderline out on his feet like that before. Let me know. Hold on. Sorry, I'm just trying to get my mic and headphones sorted out. Ryan, I'll be with you in just a sec. Donny Rutter says he didn't know because he didn't have his bearings 100% sorted. And that's a great point, by the way. And this is a great point that Gary Logan from of Box Nation fame mentioned. This is another point. Right, Ryan's coming in now. Let me just say before I bring Ryan in. Here's another thing about knowing how to survive. The count. Did anybody see Eubank hop up at 3? Did you see this muppet? The guy was out on his feet. Did you see the way Eubank hopped up at like 2 or 3? Again, do you know how to survive or not? And again, I'm not a professional boxer. So take what I say with a pinch of salt. Now, somebody said this to me last night. Contrast that with Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder. If Tyson Fury had done what Chris Eubank did in Tyson Fury's first fight, would Tyson Fury still be champion of the world? Yes or no? He took the 8, didn't he? He didn't even get on his feet. He lay on his back and told the referee he was going to get up because he couldn't feed his legs. Can you see the difference? One man's half out unconscious on the floor. He woke up midway through the count and told the ref, I'm going to get up. But he knew he couldn't feed his legs. But he still had the presence of mind to tell the referee he's okay, he's going to get up. The referee gave him every chance and he got up at the end of 8. And he survived. Look at Tyson Fury in the 3rd fight against Deontay Wilder. What happened, yeah? Got knocked down with a heavy shot, right? Did he take the 8? Yeah, Sean from the deal says Fury took the 12. Ryan, welcome to the show. How are you doing, brother?
Hello, man. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loudly and clearly, Ryan. I'm going to mute myself. Just tell us what you're feeling.
I don't know, man. I just hate Eubank Jr. I hate him with a passion. So this is going to seem really biased, but I just honestly, from day dot, I feel like he's rode his daddy's name off into the sunset. We've seen multiple times he's not good enough for the title fights or anything like that. I mean, that Billy Joe Saunders fight for me said it all. You know, he's not up there with the greats. I mean, his dad was very good at boxing. No one can take that away from him. But he's just riding his dad's name. He's not that guy. Liam Smith fought him. Liam Smith is a good boxer, and he just put him in his place. He didn't even survive the 12 rounds. He's not good enough for 12-round boxing like that.
Let me ask you, Ryan, and I'll ask the chat. I know you're a bit anti-Eubank, but let me ask you: do you think Eubank has made many improvements since that original loss to Billy Joe Saunders all them years ago? Do you think he's made that many improvements? Both you in the chat, guys. Go on, Ryan.
You know what? He has made improvements, but it's not good enough. He's still not there. I think Eubank Jr., the biggest problem he has is himself. You mean
go on? I'm interested.
You see him on Instagram, like talking the most before the fights, after the fights. He always has something to say, Eubank Jr., and he has an excuse. And I don't think he's good enough. But he has improved massively since that Billy Joe Saunders fight. I can't take that away from him. But the style he's going for is not him.
Talk to me. What style do you think he is? If you were just giving him, if you was an assistant, not even his coach, if you was an assistant, right? Imagine you're sitting in the corner last night, yeah, and you've got a couple of words of advice to give to Chris. What are you giving him? What are you saying to him?
What, last night or
just in general? Anything, just in general. But how you want him to go about it? How you want him to fight? How do you want him to go about his business?
He can't. He has to dictate from the centre of the ring. He can't be sat in the corner because he hasn't got the footwork or the ability to get away from the corner. So Liam Smith showed him that last night, and every time he put him in the corner, he was hurt.
Yeah, I think keep going. What you're saying is fine. Keep going. Yeah. So you want him to be a bit more stand your ground. You want him to be a bit more impose himself.
Centre of the ring. He can't be sitting in the corner of the ring because he's not good there. When he's in the centre of the ring and he's using his jab and he's making that distance, he looks like a good boxer. But toe-to-toe, he cannot go with anyone toe-to-toe. We've seen that multiple times. He's not a toe-to-toe fighter. Let
me ask you another thing, Ryan. Last night, right, I said before the chat, right? You don't have to agree with me. Just let me know how you feel about this.
Yeah, go on.
Last night, I said before the chat, I said, one of the doubts I've got about Chris Eubank Jr. versus Liam Williams is, to be a big man, right, there's a certain way when you're the bigger man to make that height and reach count, yeah?
Yeah.
And that involves sometimes, as you saw what Fury did it against Wilder, being on the front foot, getting on the jab, really pushing that jab out, getting the opponent onto the back foot, or you can get on the back foot and try and do what he tried to do last night. But I've never seen Chris Eubank Jr. There's a certain skill, is what I'm trying to say, Ryan, to being a big man. Being a big man isn't just about coming in the ring and weighing more. Being a big man isn't just about falling out of your mum's punani, yeah, and weighing more or being taller. You actually have to make that count in the ring, yeah. You actually have to make that count in the ring. Do you think Chris Eubank Jr. has been the bigger man in quite a few of his fights because he actually make that count with the style and the way he boxes, Ryan?
No, because it's hard to say because his style changes every fight.
Like his trainers. Keep going.
No, but it does though. He has not got one style. If he had one style and that was his style, he'd be a decent boxer. But last night he was trying he tried peekaboo for a couple of minutes. Like he was trying. It's hard to say, man. But he hasn't got one style to pick from. So he's jumping in with all different trainers, and they're all trying to get him to fight. Like you said earlier with Roy Jones, trying to fight his style. He's no good at that style, So there's nothing that's going to work for him exactly because he can't put everything together. Do you understand what I'm saying? He can only do one thing out of them all. He can't put everything together. He can't piece all the puzzle.
Let me ask you one other thing. The Conor Benn drug test. This Conor Benn drug situation. I'm just looking back at my notes, aka Google. So I reckon we had this Conor Benn issue around about October. No. Was it August time? Was it August? It was August, wasn't it? It's about August, wasn't it?
I'm not sure. I do remember the whole scandal though.
Right. Let me ask you, do you think maybe Eubank took that fight on a little bit too quickly? To be fair, August till January is about 6 months. But with what happened and the way he had to lose weight, the way he was killing himself to make weight against Conor Benn, do you think he's been badly advised there? Maybe he's bitten off a little bit than he can chew too soon, or maybe we're just making excuses. What do you think?
I think he completely bit off too much than he could chew. I think the whole Conor Benn thing as well from his side wasn't right. I mean, he was caught taking I can't remember what drug it was, but it's one they use after a cycle.
Clomiphene, correct.
Yeah, it's after a cycle, isn't it?
Clomid, yeah.
So obviously Conor Benn was I don't believe in taking that sort of thing in a fighting manner. I feel like it's okay if you're doing swimming, if you're doing anything like that, but
bodybuilding.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's cool.
You're not hurting people.
Once there's physical combat involved, I don't think that should be made illegal. Like that should be the worst of the worst, like putting that into your body to be ahead of the other guy. So I don't think that was right from Conor Benn, but I think Eubank definitely bit more off than he could chew. I'd have loved to seen that fight go ahead, and I'm pretty sure everyone else would have.
In closing, Ryan, you're the manager of Chris Eubank Jr. What do you do now?
What do I do now? I'd take him to an amateur boxing place, and I'd go through the whole thing again. I'd find his style that works for him. I'd make him do skipping fucking every day for 2 hours. His footwork needs some fucking work. He'd be sitting in the corner skipping for just doing double skips and that. Honestly, that's what I'd make him do. But I think just go back to the drawing board, see what you can do. He's going to get a couple more fights in him, obviously. Obviously, Eubank Jr. ain't done yet, but he's going to get a couple more fights in. But you just got to go back to the drawing board. And if he wants to fight again, fight again.
Thanks very much for calling in, my brother. I really appreciate it. Call in next
right.
time. Welcome back anytime. See you soon, bro.
Bye.
See you soon, my man. Ryan's our first caller. I thought he was a good caller. 143 in the chat. If you'd like to be part of the chat, please feel free to hit subscribe and be part of the chat. We don't charge anybody on here. There's no super chat. There's no. You have to pay me money to. We don't do any of that. There's no paying me money to have your say. This is open source. We call this open source boxing. Yeah, everything's free. So if you want to be part of the chat, please subscribe. Have your say in the comment section. Feel free to hit the like button. Right now we've got about 150 people in here and only 50 likes. So the like count is sucking bad. So let's up those likes. Southside Boxing. If you still want to come on, bro, you're still welcome to come on Southside Boxing. If you'd like to come on and have your say, all you got to do is just click the link at the top. Or if you need the link, ask me. What was I going to say? Ryan raised a good point. He says Eubank needs a rebuild job. But let me ask you guys in the chat this question. Do the promoters and do the people around Eubank have time for that rebuild job? Because do you know what? You know the thing with old Anthony Joshua? Do you remember after Anthony Joshua fought Usyk? And he had that big mental breakdown in the ring. And we were saying, you know what? Anthony Joshua, he needs a rebuild job, didn't he? He's another one, Anthony Joshua. I'm not saying he's in the same ballpark as Eubank. Although, listen, he's another one who's constantly switching trainers, isn't he? He's another one who's constantly switching trainers. Constantly getting distracted by things that are going on outside of the ring. And we said, Anthony Joshua, in an ideal world, he needs a rebuild job. He needs to settle down with a proper trainer. He needs to get rid of some of the hangers on. He's got about 50 people in his entourage. We don't know what's going on. And all these kind of things, yeah? So we want these kind of things sorted out. But you know what? Ultimately, what dictates it? Money, isn't it? Do you think the promoters around him really want Anthony Joshua to go into a rebuild? No, they want him to have one fight, one tune-up fight, a couple tune-up fights, and then they want to get him straight back on in a mega fight so they can make big money off him. So, are they going to let Eubank rebuild? It's all good saying he needs a rebuild job, but are they going to let him rebuild? Are they going to have patience with him to rebuild? Or are they going to try and say, look, now this guy's 33 years old. He ain't going to get any better than he is now. Listen, now's the time. It's cash out time. Who knows about Tupac? All Eyes on Me. It's checkout time. I haven't got Chevin in the chat. It's cash out time. We gotta go. We gotta go. I've got tonsillitis, so I can't sing it properly. But you know what I'm talking about, innit? You know that song on Tupac, All Eyes on Me? It's checkout time. Is it checkout time for Chris Eubank Jr.? The Emily Eubank, doing the backing vocals, singing, we gotta go. We gotta go. I don't know. Let's have a look. TMT says it's not a rebuild. It's the building in his 20s that never took place. Ryan says Anthony Joshua went back to the drawing board with the Ruiz loss. It worked. Let's have a look here. Donny Rotter says manager of Eubank Jr. Get him. So this is what Donny would do if he was the manager. Donny would get him away from Calla, ditch the Roy Jones Jr. style, and get it on with it. Where do you guys think about Calla Sauerland? I know Eubank has some kind of promotional agreement with Calla Sauerland, but after Calla's conduct in that whole Conor Benn thing, to be honest, if that was, put it this way, let me say it the other way, right? If Chris Eubank Jr. was my family member, if Chris Eubank Jr. was my brother or my cousin, or whatever, I would be telling him that Calla Sauerland has to go. I'm sorry, man. I'm seeing Calla Sauerland come on Talk Sport. What did he say? I'll show you. You guys think I make this shit up? Did Calla Sauerland not come on Talk Sport and say it ain't a performance in arts in drug? Mate, whose side are you on it? Let me get this shit up. I couldn't believe what I was fucking hearing, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Look, this is the video here. Calla Sauerland says Eubank's fight with Conor Benn is on, despite Ben failing a drugs test. I'm just reading the literal title on the screen. For any of the lawyers that are listening, that's not my opinion. I'm literally just reading what's on the screen, yeah? It was in this video here when he was quizzed by Simon Jordan. Conor Sauerland got on the camera and saying it ain't a performance-enhancing drug. Who the fuck needs a promoter like that? Bro, I'm like, bro, are you my promoter or not? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, what are you promoting me or not? My opponent's just had 2 adverse findings for Clomid. And my promoter's going on TalkSport saying, well, look, it ain't a performance-enhancing drug. Are you fucking crazy? How is this guy taking 10% of Eubank's money? This guy's getting 10%. Bro, if Eubank's in my family, yeah, I'm saying, bro, this Calais guy's got to go. He got to go. I don't care who you sign with. I don't care if you go back to Blue Water Shopping Centre and sign with Mick Hennessy. This Conor Sauerland guy has got to go. Look, let's get a photo of Big Mick up. Who thinks that Eubank needs to go and sign with Mick Hennessy? Say what you want about Mick Hennessy, yeah? Say what you want about Mick Hennessy. But Mick Hennessy, yeah, stands up for his fighters. You saw how Mick Hennessy rolled, yeah, when Hughie Fury lost that decision to Joseph Parker, yeah? Mick Hennessy came on IFL TV and told everybody straight, nah. Hughie Fury looked like Muhammad Ali in that ring tonight. Shades of Ali. Yeah, Mick Hennessy goes to war for his fighters, man. Mick Hennessy ain't going to be on no TalkSport talking to Simon Jordan the next day on TalkSport going, well, Simon, Clomid isn't a PED. How's this guy getting 10% of my paycheck? Nah. Boxing's a filthy sport, bro. Boxing is a filthy sport. It is a filthy, filthy sport. You can't trust nobody in this game. You can't trust nobody. Dairy Free says, Mr. Anderson, I know you know nothing about boxing high level. Bro, I'm pretty sure Mr. Anderson has boxed for quite a while. He's one of the people in our chat who's, I'm pretty sure he's been in the ring and he's boxed and knows fighters and trainers. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. There's a particular fighter from Manchester that I'm thinking of as well that he knows. Anyway, let's carry on. Darren D says, I think we are confusing Junior with a fighter who wants titles. Good point. Junior's entire career has been a cash out. As long as the name can pay the bills, that's all he cares about. Not boxing. This is Mr. Anderson. I've actually boxed world champions. He's sparred world champions. There you go. So there you go, Derry. You're gonna have to stand down on that. Mr. Anderson's been on this channel for a very, very long time. He's one of the guys in this chat that have actually been in the ring. If you know about this channel, you know we're quite big on that here. We ain't doing the whole resume warrior thing here. But what do you think about this comment from Darren D? I think this is an excellent comment from Darren D. What do you think about this comment from Darren D? Maybe we've all got it wrong, according to Darren D. Maybe it's never been about belts with titles with Eubank. Maybe his whole career's been a cash out. Maybe it's always been about the money. What do you guys think? Maybe I'm judging Chris by the wrong standards. Maybe that's what's going on. Maybe I'm being a bit too harsh on Chris because I'm judging him by the wrong standards. Maybe, all this talk about, wanting to fight for all time. I tell you what, Eubank has had opportunities before, isn't he? And he's turned them down. Turned down a fight against Gennady Golovkin. Could have fought for a world title. Turned that down. So I think there's been a couple fights, isn't it, where Eubank's had opportunities. He could have fought Billy Joe Saunders in a rematch for Billy Joe Saunders' WBO world title when Saunders was promoted by Frank Warren. And he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to do that. Do you remember that? He turned that one down as well. I'm not saying he's scared of Saunders. I think it was more the fact that he didn't want to work with Frank Warren. Him and his father just didn't want to work with Frank, but turned down the opportunity to fight with Saunders for the WBO world title. So, he's turned down a couple of opportunities that he claims he wants in the past. So maybe we've got it wrong with Eubank. Maybe, it is how Darren said it. Look, this guy is just, he's just playing on his father's name. You want about, mate, says Darren is right. Same story with Conor. Do you know what? To be all honest, right? Even though, look, Conor is... The less said about Conor, the better. What would you guys think about hunger? Can I ask you guys a question? Just give me the name. Who do you guys think is more hungry as a fighter? Who comes across as the hungrier fighter? The fighter that's more desperate to win. The fighter that's more desperate to become a champion. Conor Benn or Chris Eubank? Who comes across to you as the hungrier fighter? when you hear them talk, when you see them train, who comes across to you that who comes across as the hungrier fighter, the guy who wants it more? Who do you think wants it more? Who do you think really wants it more for a world title out of Chris Eubank and Conor Benn? Give me a name. I'll give you my name. I'll give you who I think, but I want to see who you post in the chat first, so that I don't influence you. I agree with you all. Ryan Chalk says Ben is hungrier. Sean at Medieval says Ben, but he's early in his career. Connor says Ben. You can't fault Eubank's work rate and preparation, to be fair though. Dench says Ben. I can't read that. You on about men says Ben, but who has he fought? Yo King says Ben. M.A. Carr says Ben. I agree. Ben, to me, I'll be honest with you. Now, if you're asking me whether I believe that Conor Benn had clomid in his system because he was eating contaminated hen eggs, then that's a different conversation for another day. If you're asking me if Conor Benn had clomid in his system because he ingested it from some tainted punani, that's a conversation for another day. But if you're asking me if Conor Benn appears, on the camera to be the hungrier fighter than Eubank, I think Conor Benn does want it more. To be honest, I think Conor Benn does want it more. That's my opinion. 1 second. Derry and Mr. Anderson, chill. Right, let's go through some of the rest of these comments. Southside Boxing. I've been a pro trainer for many years, but you won't know me, and that's because I won't play the game. Let's not forget who pays the bills. Let's not forget who pays the trainer's bills. Excuse me, let me read that again. Sorry, Southside Boxing. I've been a professional trainer for many years, but you won't know me, and that's because I won't play the game. Let's not forget who pays the bills. Trainers work with promoters. The fighter comes last. Listen, Southside Boxing, I 100% believe you. I've said before, there's so many trainers in the UK who are out there doing good jobs, and they don't get any credit. They don't get a lot of credit. So I agree with you on that. There's loads out there. There's a few in Britain that I can think of that I haven't worked with personally, but they look like they're doing a good job and they don't get the credit they deserve. So I do agree with you on that. Right, guys. Bottom line of it is this, right? I want your thoughts on this. Question number 1 to the chat and to anybody who wants to call in, right? Listen to this question carefully now, and I want your answers. If the goal of Chris Eubank's career is to be a world champion, should he retire from boxing? Right? That's the question. That's question 1. If the goal for Chris Eubank's career, if his goal is to become a world champion, should he retire from boxing? If that's his goal in the sport. If his goal in the sport is to become a world champion, should he now retire from boxing? I'm asking you for your opinion. I'm not saying what I believe in. I'm asking you for your opinion. If his goal is to become world champion, should he call it a day in the sport? And the reason I ask that is because some people would say, well, if your goal is to be world champion, it's quite clear at the age of 33, at the minute, you probably aren't going to be world champion. So if your goal is to be world champion and it's not money orientated, should you consider retirement? That's just something that's not my point of view, but that's something that I'm just firing at you guys right now. How do you guys feel about that? Let's go through it. Right, you got some answers in here. Donnie's saying no. Even though Chris Eubank Jr.'s got... So you're saying, even though Chris Eubank Jr.'s... So if Chris Eubank Jr.'s goal is to become a world champion, he should not retire. Does anybody here still believe Chris Eubank can be a world champion, by the way? Just out of interest. Does anybody here in this chat believe that Chris Eubank can win a version of a world title at any weight? I'm not saying yes or no, I just want to know. Does anybody think there's a champion out there that he matches up well with or does well with? Do you know what was interesting? We look at 160 pounds. Recently we saw Denzel Bentley give Janibek a very, very good run for his money in a fight for the world title. Do you guys remember that? Would that sort of change your mind about whether he can compete for a world title or not? The fact that Denzel Bentley went life or death with Lindis Udolpha at York Hall. Am I right? Am I wrong? Do you guys not? Does that not make you think a little bit? The fact that Denzel Bentley went from going life and death with Lindis Udolpha at York Hall to getting in the ring away from home on a top rank card and doing very, very well against Janibek, the guy that nobody wanted to fight. Does that not tell you that on the night, maybe styles make fights? Do you see a champion out there that maybe you think Eubank might have a chance against, or just no? And we're talking about any weight, not just middleweight, any weight. Do you think he can be a world champion? Donny Rata says if the goal is for Eubank to be a world champion, you should call it a day. LD Phoenix agrees. If the goal is to be a world... excuse me. Donny Rata says he should not retire. If the goal is to be a world champion, Eubank shouldn't retire. LD Phoenix says no. So he says if the goal is to be a world champion, Eubank should not retire. Darren D saying yes. If the goal is being a world champion, Eubank shouldn't box anymore. Sean Medieval says no, he shouldn't retire, but he's not likely to become a world champion. M.A. Khan says no. Dench agrees he should call it a day. Balajat says he should call it a day. If his goal is to be world champion, he should call it a day. Quite a few of you are saying no. So the overall majority of you are saying no. He should carry on. He should carry on. Sean Medieval says Bentley beats Eubank Jr. By the way, Denzel Bentley beats Eubank Jr. Denzel Bentley can bang a bit, but Jesus, that's a Jesus. I mean, Jesus. I mean, this is some rabbit hole we're going down, aren't we? Aren't we? That is some fucking rabbit hole we're going down. Jesus Christ, we were talking about Chris Eubank Jr. versus Gennady Golovkin last week. Now you're telling me fucking... one sec. Now you're telling me fucking he would struggle against Denzel Bentley. Are you sure we don't need to calm down and have a Horlicks and chill out a bit here? That's a pretty big drop, you know. Denzel Bentley, I like Denzel Bentley. Queensbury and all that, you know, we're all Queensbury and all that, but fucking hell. Jesus, that is some fall. What do you guys think about this? How about Eubanks versus Felix Cash? Joe says Felix Cash is a good scrap for Eubank, but I would retire regardless. Jesus Christ, Felix Cash. Dunno, man. Depends what kind of Felix Cash is getting in the ring. Cough, 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 innit? Depends what version of Felix Cash you're getting. Cough, cough, cough. If you're getting the version against Denzel Bentley, then Jesus Christ, it's going to be bad news for Eubank. If you're getting the version that turns up on on some of these other cards, on these DAZN undercards, then I'm not sure. Depends what version of Cash you would get. Damian Brown says Eubank has been living off his father's name. He wants to step out of his shadow, but he can't be average boxers like Liam Smith. Without the Eubank name, he wouldn't have made it as far as he does. Yeah, but I don't think we can say Liam Smith is an average fighter, though, can we? Liam Smith is no average fighter. Not in Britain, anyway. I think Liam Smith is one of the best fighters in this country. I mean, if you remember a couple of years ago, you know, people were saying Liam Smith was were picking him to beat Kell Brook. Do you remember that a couple of years ago when Liam Smith and Kell Brook had that spar before Brook fought Golovkin? And people were saying, look, they thought that Liam Smith could beat Kell Brook. So Liam Smith's a good fighter. He's a good fighter. Connor says, I don't actually think Eubank matches up too badly against this version of GGG. Connor, are you mad? I actually don't think Eubank matches up too badly against this version of GGG. Oh my, are you sure about that? He's going to struggle with the jab, isn't he? Oh, I don't know about that. GGG, you see what he did to Ryan Murata? Jesus, nearly broke that man. Did he break that man's eye socket? Golovkin is a fearsome puncher still. G Poker says people need to relax. Exactly. Could have been an off night with weight issues. Yeah, he ain't a great boxer, but he's still all right. Yeah, I think we're taking the piss though, aren't we? We're kind of taking it a little bit too far. We're kind of taking it a little bit too far. So yeah, it is what it is. We're kind of taking it a little bit too far there. Bringing up Denzel Bentley and shit. Look, I love Queensbury to the bone, but fuck. Bringing up Denzel Bentley and shit. Fuck. Right, let's finish up. Right, guys. We'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see. Just trying to see if there's anything else that we should be yapping about. I think we made the mistake of going a little bit too early today. I think we've run at the same time as some other shows. So I'm just trying to see if there's anything else anybody wants to quickly talk about before we go, or forever hold your peace. Is there anything else that we've missed out on? Last night, for those of you who are big Joe Parker fans, I mean, we smashed Joe Parker to bits last night. Oh no, we're doing really well. Oh my gosh, yeah, actually, 124, we're doing really well considering. Oh yeah, we're doing really well considering. Let's have a look. Final comments. Let's get some last comments. Can I ask you guys a quick question as well? You guys can ask any question you want about boxing. We'll quickly answer it now. If there's anything else we need to go through, ask it and we'll go through it now. Is anybody interested in football, in particular Manchester United? If you are, press 1. I'm thinking about covering Manchester United versus Barcelona in a couple of weeks' time, live on this channel. And I'm looking to have a little bit of football chat just to see how it goes before that. So after this, we might have a little bit of football chat very, very quickly. Very, very quickly. Combat Rage says, who should Chris Congo fight next? I don't really know, because I don't really pay much attention to the British sort of welterweight scene. So I'm not sure who Congo should fight next. All I'll say is, I will comment on one thing though. Dev, who's my mate from Queensbury, he says that he thinks Eko Essuman can beat Conor Benn. Let me tell you right now, Eko Essuman is on a completely different level. So Conor Benn is on a completely different level to Eko Essuman. Would you agree with that? Press 1 if you would agree with that. Press 2 if you disagree. This is Dev, and I love Dev to bits, but he says Eko Essuman would beat Conor Benn. No, he would not. Conor Benn's in a completely different league to Eko Essuman. If Essuman could survive and take it late, yes, it could be interesting. But he don't have to kind of... Conor Benn's just physically, punch power, he's just on a different level. I just don't think Essuman would beat Conor Benn. Yeah, Derry, yeah, you were timed out. The reason why you was timed out, Derry, the only reason I timed you out is just to sort of encourage you to stop going back and forth in my chat. That's all, Derry. That's all. Mr. Anderson says, I think he could beat Ben. That's a good fight. He can't. I'll play it out. Listen, you can't get more Queensbury than me. But listen, Eko Essuman, I can safely say, he ain't beating Conor Benn. No fucking way. Connor says, Dev lets his bias blind him. I don't think it's bias. Bias. I think Dev's a friend. He's not a friend, but I know Dev a little bit. I'll speak to Dev. Dev's a good guy. He's a really, really good guy, and he likes to have a laugh. And he genuinely believes that, but I don't. I just think that Conor Benn is just on a different level. Physically, punch power, I just think Conor Benn operates on a different level. Eko Essuman, I like him, right? He's the engine, right? But let's just be real. He is nowhere near world level. Would we agree on that? Essuman is nowhere near world level. Conor Benn, last time we checked, was on a fringe world level. You want about mate comes out with a heat check. He says, calm down on Ben. Let's see how he looks when he's clean. Fair enough. Donny Rutter says, after Usyk and Joyce, does Fury still need to brock AJ for his resume to hold against the... I ain't talking about resumes. I don't think Usyk and Fury will happen. I think something will happen and Fury won't fight him. And I don't think Fury's scared of anything, but I do think Fury wants to make sure the timing's right. So I think something will come up and that fight won't happen. And so it is what it is. And Frank Warren's going to get slagged, but that's his problem. Frank Warren shouldn't be on TalkSport every 5 minutes giving us the blow-by-blow about fights that haven't happened yet. He's doing the same shit that Eddie Hearn used to do. So when that fight don't happen, it's going to be big, big problems. And I ain't going to be there to defend any of them. Crazy Free says, Ultra, will you go live for the lion slaughter next week? Jesus fucking Christ. Jesus fucking Christ. Yard versus Beterbiev. It's just... It is shocking. It's shockingly bad. Yes, if we still have a channel, we should be going live for that. Ingram, I believe, will be joining us for that one. I don't want to... Oh, can I just say that I don't even want to watch this fight? because I don't want to see anything bad happen to Anthony Yard. But something bad is going to happen to Anthony Yard. I hope Yard wins, you know. If Yard wins, we need to build a statue of Tunde Ajayi. Would you agree with that? If Yard wins that fight, we need to build a statue of Tunde Ajayi. And he needs to be invited for Buckingham. In fact, if Anthony Yard beats Artur Beterbiev, the United Kingdom should have a bank holiday the following Monday and nobody should have to go into work. I don't care what anybody says, you know. If Yard beats Beterbiev, yeah, Rishi Sunak needs to call a bank holiday and nobody should be going to work on Monday. That's how much of a big deal it is. They should mint coins in Tunde Ajayi's honour. They should mint coins in the honour of Tunde Ajayi. If anybody wants to Photoshop Tunde Ajayi's face on the front of a $50 bill, Tunde Ajayi's face needs to be on the front of a $50 bill. If Anthony Yard beats Artur Beterbiev. I'm serious. You think I'm fucking joking? I'm calling for Tunde Ajayi to be on the New Year's Honours list. Have you seen who's getting nominated for BBC Sports Personality of the Year? They're nominating all these random horse riders and shit. Someone got nominated for curling. Hold on a minute. Do you remember this? British Boxing Personality of the Year. What the fuck are they doing? Sports Personality of the Year. They nominated someone for curling. Let me see this. Someone got nominated for fucking curling. Mate, if they're nominating people for fucking curling, look at this shit. Eve Murrayhead, third at the British Sports Personality of the Year Awards. She led the Great Britain's women's team that won curling gold at the 2002 Winter Olympics. What the fuck cares? It's curling. You know what I mean? Like, listen, if Yard wins, simple as that. If Yard wins, I want to see Tunde Ajayi's face on all forms of monetary currency. In the UK and in Europe. From the Monday after the fight. Simple as that. You're on about, mate, says if Yard wins, I'm going to get in a... if Yard wins, they need to get Tunde in a room with Jesus. Right. Let's call it a day. 1 minute 20. Let's call it a day. What we're going to do in the next episode, which is coming in 2 minutes. Tony's here. Before I go, let me do this. You need to support people that are in the sport. So, if you do me a favour, I don't ask you for much. But if you can hit up Tony's Reviews, who's pretty much got the same number of subs I have. There's the link to the channel, so I should put his name there. There's the link to the channel. Tony's is a regular on our channel. There's the link to Tony's Reviews. 32 fights in the amateurs. Been there, trained with a lot of fighters, knows a lot of fighters. He's a serious guy. Derry signing off. Ultra, you fool, you're deluded. Your chat, Guan, Guan. Derry, goodbye, Derry. Goodbye. And why are you using the word Guan? I've never heard anybody in my life with a name called Derry use the word Guan in my entire life. That's like someone with the name Maxwell coming up to me and saying Wagwan. That's like someone with the name Toby coming up to me and saying Wagwan. What in the bumper clot are you chat about? Never heard someone with the name Derry start talking about what's Guan and this and that. That's an automatic ban right there. Anyway, support real boxing. Support real boxing. Alright? Support real boxing. Yeah, and support real boxers, yeah? Because what like I said before, we need to hear from people in the sport who have put on gloves. We don't need to see any more videos from people who haven't put on gloves. So please do me a favour. Please hit the link. Please support our friends and neighbours. All right. And there's the link to Tony's Reviews. Please hit it. And if you want to hear from someone who's actually been in the fucking ring, please feel free and please hit the subscribe button. Now, if you would like to hear, and like I said before, I don't know much about football, but I've got a few things to say about Manchester United Football Club. I did watch the game today with Arsenal, who I watched for the first time this season. I've watched a few United games this season. I watch Barcelona every week at this point, and Man United are playing Barca on the 16th. If you'd like to have a little chat about what's going on at Manchester United with Eric Ten Hag, and what's going on with their recent results, the City game, the Arsenal game today, and the upcoming game against Barcelona, plus any general football chat, please, I will be live in best part of 5 minutes. If you're interested and you'd like to hear about that, then by all means, join in 5 minutes. Big thank you for all the support. Big thank you to my new best mate Joe Gallagher, who you know listens to the show because he was in the chat today. Big shout out. Maybe one day he can come on, but like I said, no pressure. You know, like I said before, no pressure. He's for the big boy leagues. We're not quite ready yet. We're not quite there yet. But you'd be surprised who listens to the show. Take care of yourselves and each other.